Okay, so in this video, what we're going to be looking at is the changes that were happening in society. Okay, people were, especially women and African Americans, were changing in the ways that they thought, in their value system. Okay, so women go into the 1920s, starting with the 19th Amendment, have this new power, women's suffrage, the right to vote, right? They also started being able to work a lot more. They started going to school. They had more of an education. And so, okay, so you had women that were working, right? And so they were making more money. So then they become a little more assertive. They want to be more independent. And they kind of show that through what's known as a flapper attitude. Okay, so they're wearing their hair a lot shorter. They're wearing shorter dresses. They also begin reading Sigmund Freud, who is known for his theory of psychosexual development. And so they start treating their own sexuality more open. You see that in the way they dress and them going out on dates without chaperones, etc., which is a pretty big deal during this time. For the ladies that stayed home and didn't work, the appliances, the new technologies that were coming into the household made them have more time for leisurely activities. Okay, so it affected women in many, many different ways. We're going to take a quick little look at the flapper dress and even the way they would dance. Okay, so the first was a little more original than the second. Hope you enjoyed it. All right, so now moving on to the next slide. Okay, so Tin Pan Alley was a section of New York City where you had songwriting and musical ideas getting mixed together, and they're forming American popular music. You had different styles like blues, jazz, ragtime, and all these different musical styles being mixed together. And at the same time, you had the popularizing of vaudeville stage entertainment. Okay, and these programs needed music. And the publishing houses of Tin Pan Alley were very glad to provide them because it created a huge money-making source. Okay, so not only were the publishers in the Tin Pan Alley making money from the vaudeville shows, but there were also regular American people who were very interested in buying up the music that was being created here, because after the Civil War, there were a lot of pianos being sold, and these people just wanted to play this music at home. Okay. All right, so in the 1920s, you had the youth of America doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And at the same time, you also had a group of writers who were known as the Lost Generation, okay? And they believed that after the horrors and brutality of World War I, that they didn't fit the patterns of everyday life. And they rejected the idea of material wealth that was engulfing the American way of life. You had one writer, many of them, but one of them was Ernest Hemingway, who was living in Paris, who wrote about the experiences in World War I in his book, A Farewell to Arms. Okay. He also wrote The Sun Also Rises, which kind of showed the strength of the Lost Generation. Sinclair Lewis, he wrote Main Street and Babbitt, which in which he ridiculed the narrowness and hypocrisy of American life. All right. He also was well known for strongly characterizing American women in the roles of modern workers. Okay, and in 1930 he became the first American author to be given the Nobel Prize in Literature. All right, so F. Scott Fitzgerald, we saw him, of course, in The Great Gatsby. We've already talked about that, but he also wrote The Jazz Age. In The Great Gatsby, like we saw, it's about a really rich but mysteriously and unhappy self-made man. Now, I know that you don't know the end of the story yet, but basically, in a nutshell, at the end, his point was to show that materialistic success can ultimately lead to tragedy. Okay, and you also have what is known as the Great Migration. Okay, to migrate means to move from one place to another. And this was happening within the United States. You had about 2 million African Americans who moved to the North from the South because they viewed the North as the promised land. They had a lot of hope to have prosperity in this area. They left the South. They left to escape sharecropping, to escape tenant farming, to escape all the racism that they found in the South. Now, however, when they moved north, they did still find racism. They had housing shortages and there was crime. However, in the north, the wages that were offered there were significantly higher than the ones in the South. Okay. Now, they all eventually, there was a large congregation of African Americans who moved to Harlem, which became the largest black neighborhood and became a cultural hub for that particular period of time. And we'll get further into that tomorrow. Remember, if you have any questions, please ask.